Well, first, I'd like to know if you feel some pressure going into this area given the success of The Handmaid's Tale.
Well, of course you feel pressure. I mean, I think it comes more from you're adapting Margaret Atwood's novel and you don't want to mess that up. I mean, a lot of people have read it. And so I think that, it feels like a great, privilege to be able to do that. So you feel pressure to make sure you do that. But certainly, on the heels of a television show that is successful and as successful as Handmaid's Tale, you feel pressure, you feel trepidation. But in this case, we brought so many people with us who had worked on The Handmaid's Tale, not just including Ann Dowd, our spectacular lead, but a lot of the crew, a lot of the behind the scenes people. Elizabeth Moss was on as another executive producer. So I think that in order to kind of ameliorate the pressure of making something new, we made something that was both new and still connected to the old piece. So I hope that the pressure kind of made us better, but certainly there's pressure when you're doing anything like this. It's a responsibility that I take, seriously. I don't want to mess it up.
And you, William?
Our security blanket was Lizzie Moss. Every single episode, June was front and center. So how do we let that go and then do a show that doesn't feel like it's Handmaid's Light, right? But feels it's its own show. And so wonderfully, of course, Aunt Lydia, Ann Dowd, crossed over, and she's an important part of the past, but so much of the show is built on the future. And it's those fresh, young faces that bring the Testaments to life. So were we scared? We were scared. But we're also wildly happy with the results.
Yes, I'd like to know, according to the last word that you say, The Handmaid's Tale has a big fandom. Some of the viewers of this TV show come to the Testaments. But I'd like to know, how do you develop the lines of this new TV show, knowing that there may be viewers who are just discovering the universe created of Margaret for the first time?
It's a good question, and I think that that question was at the front of mind when we were making The Testaments. The Testaments is its own show and its own world, just like the novel. And you don't have to have watched The Handmaid's Tale. You don't have to know what a handmaid is. In fact, there isn't a handmaid in The Testaments. So I think that we very much wanted it to be its own world that you could come into without doing any studying and be brought along and understand everything that's going on. Absolutely. If you've seen the show and you've read the books, I'm sure that there's more, there's more little eggs to be found, which of course is the reward for having done all that. But I think we wanted it to be, feel akin to the world that we were in, but very much feel fresh and hopeful. And you don't want it to be connected, even though the Handmaid's Tale was such a success and we're so proud of it. We definitely want these young women in this series to be forging their own path.
Do you think that in these dark times, the TV show us things that we want to be part of the humanity? Do you think that the TV show helped to understand some dark things in the history?
I think it does. Our feeling, particularly with the Testaments, is that hope is absolutely present. I think it's fair to say that the patriarchy has done a pretty bad job throughout the world. And human rights, women's rights have been trampled on. So we come to this population of young women who have only known a world with Gilead. And season 1 is their awakening. And what we're leaning into and seeing is, what will they do? And the seeds are absolutely there of what they will do. And so I think, much like the world we live in, our hope lies in the future, in the next generation, to say we want a better place, that this world is not as good as it can be. And so we reflect. We're not news or documentary, but we do have some sense of reflecting a world we live in. And I think really important for these times, a sense of hope.
Of course. We are in time, but I'd like to know if Margaret worked with you in the development.
So Margaret was instrumental, in my understanding of Handmaid's Tale. She was very open as a writer and just, discussing things. She came to the idea of doing the Testaments quite a long time ago. It was only 2018 when she first started to talk about it. So really, she's been able to kind of give me a lot of time and a lot of her insight as she's been figuring the project out. And she's very open and asked thoughtful questions. Every once in a while, she told me not to kill somebody. But other than that, she very much was bringing me along through her process. And I think Margaret and I have fortunately had time over all the seasons to get together and go through just generally what was going to happen. I mean, she's my very first person I talked to about the story, just to make sure, we're kind of on the same page. So I think that our relationship has been based on as much free time as she has, which is none. She's busier than all three of us combined.
Thank you, guys, for your time and congratulations, and thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.